Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Addiction Hope Google Hangout. We're so glad that you could join us tonight for our special presentation on substance abuse in college students, which is definitely an important topic to address. And we're so excited to have as our special guest, Dr. Gregory Jantz, who is a specialist in the eating disorder and addiction field, author, speaker, as well as the founder of the Center, A Place of Hope. So welcome, Dr. Jantz. We're so glad to have you here with us tonight.
Thank you. It's good to be with you. We'll have some fun with a difficult topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get us started, can you maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and maybe a little bit about the work that you've done in this field?
Do you know, this is actually my 31st year. Is that amazing?
Wow, that's incredible.
31 years. And I am still passionate, still really happy to be doing what we're doing, and still feel really called to this field. And it was over 30 years ago that I began working with eating disorders, interestingly, in a women's prison, of all places.
Wow.
So, that's where I had my captive audience to work with eating disorders. And from there, we began to create a place called the Center, A Place of Hope. And we really originated something called the whole person model, where we're looking at not only the emotional side or the psychological side, but we've brought together teams that actually work with the physical side, the medical, the psychiatric side, the nutritional, the fitness. We bring it all together, the chemical dependency side, because we really believe that we heal when there is really a team effort surrounding us, and that increases our probability for long-term success. And I just finished my 30th book.
Wow, congratulations. That's fantastic.
And it's on relationship dependency, entitled Don't Call It Love. And really, if you're struggling with an addiction, a lot of times we need to also look at, there could be relationship addiction as well. And so Don't Call It Love's all about, well, what happens if, maybe I've grown a lot, I'm no longer struggling with other addictions, but I may have a relationship addiction. And we'll talk about that, because that can be a part of the college picture as well.
Absolutely. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And you touched a little bit, and this is obviously a field that you're very passionate about. But can you maybe share with us what motivates you to stay in a field that's so very challenging? Like you said, it requires a collaboration of professionals across the board to address such a complex issue like an eating disorder or substance abuse. What has motivated you to stay in such a challenging field?
Oh my, you're saying, well, this is such a hard, challenging, why do you still do this, right? And one of the things that I really feel is important is I see success, I see hope, and that's why we're a place of hope. I see lives change, and that's really what keeps me going with this. When we see the progress, see the lives change. And I'm kind of the kind of person that's got to see that, or I might be onto something else. So part of my passion is seeing lives change for good. So that's a good question. What keeps a person doing this? And one of the things, and I was just talking to a client recently, or who had been here actually a couple of years ago, and she had said to me, she says, you know what, I recovered from my eating disorder, I'm still doing well, and I had to come to a place where I understood it's okay now just to be happy. And that's what it's about, moving to a place of purpose and meaning in our life.
Absolutely. And I just think it's wonderful that you've helped so many individuals just in your extensive work career. So thank you for everything you've contributed to this field.
Absolutely.
So we're going to delve right into our topic about college, the college environment and college students and substance abuse. Can you share with us what factors do you think make college students susceptible to developing substance abuse and addiction?
Well, I think one of the things, the framework to look at this from is we live in a culture where it's so easy to get addicted to anything. We're stimulus seeking people. We love a lot of stimuli. And if you're growing up with all the technology, college is different now than even it was when I was there. And there's more opportunities now than ever before to develop addictions. And we can talk about technology. We live in an age where sexual addiction is growing at really rapid rates. We also need to look at, yes, eating disorders are still on the forefront, but we're having more ways also to be chemically addicted. And there's more ways and more opportunities for chemical addiction. And I think we're seeing a resurgence of alcohol on our college campuses. And this kind of goes and wanes, but we're seeing it's kind of an upsurge again. And then we add something like smoking. Well, it's maybe cigarettes aren't cool, but man, vaping is hot. So, okay, we got more ways to stimulate ourselves and to get ourselves addicted than ever before. Then we add, I think college is more competitive. College is more intense than before, and the pressure is greater. So we've got more stress and pressure, and we add that with more opportunities to be addicted. We've got a little bit of an equation that could be disastrous.
Mm-hmm. And can you maybe touch a little bit on the challenges that some college students are facing? You said, it's an intense time of stress, but just alone on like transitioning to college and what that might bring up for some students who, are used to their high school campus and are all of a sudden coming to this environment where there's a lot more freedom and opportunity.
Yes, and for some folks moving from a semi-structured of high school into, wow, I potentially have a lot of freedom here, which means I have a lot more opportunity for experimentation as well. And for some who are already kind of prone towards, maybe they've had an addictive history, maybe through junior high, high school, and you move into this college setting where there's, wow, I do have more freedom, and I can even act out more. I can be even more impulsive, and it kind of seems to be okay. I just got to perform in school. But then you reach a point where maybe you're not doing so well, and we enter into some sleep deprivation issues, and then we go, okay, I'm not, I'm studying and I'm trying to study and I'm not sleeping well or sleeping much, and so then I turn to stimulants to keep me going. It's beyond 5-hour energy. It's beyond all the caffeine. I look for stimulants in order to keep me going, which is another setup.
Exactly. That's such a good point. And for students that are dealing with an addiction problem to substances, what resources might they have available to them on their campus to get the help they need for recovery?
And really in answering that question, we need to look at, okay, I realize, I am my second year in college, and boy, I am really struggling. I may be struggling with some depression. I feel like I'm starting to experience some academic struggles and maybe some academic failure, and I'm starting to use chemicals more, and I'm feeling a need to escape more. I can't handle what's going on, so I'm going more towards escapism behaviors, anything from eating to chemical use to drinking to internet. But I'm looking, and bottom line is, I have so much pressure and I'm depressed. I'm looking to mood elevate. I need to change how I'm feeling because I'm not doing that great. And then the question is, okay, this is starting to be out of control and I'm kind of worried about myself. What do I do? Where do I go? Well, there's college counseling center, but do I go there? And I would say, here's what most college students tell us. I waited too long to get help. I could have done something sooner. I wish I would have. I would have done better. My grades would have been better. I could have had a clearer mind. I waited too long. I had to take a semester out of college just to get my help and get into recovery. And if you had to do that, that was still a really good decision. But the biggest thing I hear is people regret waiting too long. And so, you know what? Go to that source. I'm going to say, yeah, absolutely. You may go as a beginning place to a college counseling center, and we need to remember that there is good confidentiality, but we need to begin to go, okay, what am I going to do? Well, number one is I've got to ask for help. And I find a lot of college folks are reluctant to really let their parents know, of course, what's going on, even their peers, because there's that issue of shame. I'm still really ashamed of this, and I'm supposed to be having a great time. I'm supposed to be able to handle all this, and I'm not handling it well.
Mm-hmm.
So begin by a willingness to ask for help. Now, this is probably why a situation like we'll see college students who are coming in for more intensive care, a higher level of care than just general outpatient, because there reaches a point where I've got to figure out, how am I going to deal with stress? How am I going to manage my schedule? What am I going to do with my friends who just want to party? And I go, I can't function that way. And that's not the way I want to live. Because what you're doing now in college is you're probably setting a foundation for things you're going to continue once you're out of college. Keep that in mind.
You raised some really good points. Thank you for sharing that. And you said one big issue is the shame factor. And I think another issue that students might be dealing with is just simply denial,
Yes.
Not really facing the fact that there's a problem. So what red flags, should students be aware of that really indicate that they need help, and they need help immediately for substance abuse?
Yes. Well, one of the red flags immediately is I'm not doing well academically, and I can't concentrate, and I'm not sleeping well, and I'm relying on substances to try to get me through the day. That's a real indication. I am so emotionally and physically fatigued. I'm not doing well. And with that in mind, that's a red flag that says, okay, I've been struggling. It's been a month and I'm not doing well. In fact, I'm even considering I'm going to have to drop this class. Or and you're finding that anxiety. Maybe you are waking up each day and there's that pending doom, that sense of anxiousness that's with you, and you're having a hard time actually concentrating in your classes. I mean, that's a second warning sign, because really what you're doing is you're starting to live a pretty depressed lifestyle. So, and it's becoming unmanageable. So I would say those are a few of the warning signs. Another warning sign is, hey, I'm no longer partying on the weekends. I want to do it every night now. And that's a warning sign.
Thank you for sharing
just a few. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there can be so many different things, like emotionally and physically, but I think you touched on some really key things that students would be more likely to, tune into.
Yeah.
So for students that are attending college and are looking for treatment options, can you explain maybe some of the treatment options that are available? Like you mentioned a little bit about outpatient versus intensive outpatient.
To go in an outpatient and see somebody, I would make sure, first of all, it's got to be somebody that really understands, if you will, the college or university mindset and demands. So I'm going to be selective about who I'm going to go see, because I'm going to want them to understand my world. And I want them to be in a place where they can assess, do I need a higher level of care? Am I able to maintain this on an outpatient basis? Or do I need to really, school breaks coming up, Christmas breaks coming up, I need to really use this time to find a place where I can regroup and revitalize and change this pattern that's going on in my life. I don't want to, I don't want to live a life or a lifestyle of addiction. And I know where that's going to take me, and I don't want to go that way. So I'm going to probably seek a counselor first, and we can begin to assess and get a game plan, because I may need to do something a little more intensively, over a school break. I'll tell you, when we see folks be willing to do that, they come back, in a whole different mode, and we've got to have good accountability and keep that outpatient counseling going. But that is time well spent.
Absolutely. And I was just going to ask too, a lot of students are under so much academic pressure to,
I agree.
To perform to a certain level. Some students may be under a scholarship. So for that student who's just concerned about possibly having to take a semester off for addiction treatment, I mean, what would your encouragement be to that student where that kind of care is necessary for intervention?
Well, there is something called a medical leave, and schools do this. And I know that we uh, even write letters to schools for this purpose, where there's actually a medical leave. Now, the school doesn't need to know what exactly it is you're doing, but medical leaves are something that are fairly common and usually a good way to go. It kind of puts everything on hold, and you're not penalized because it's a medical leave. So it's a way to kind of get a fresh start without just dropping out. And medical leave also allows you to return and come back.
That's really good to know. And I think
Yeah.
you mentioned that students that go through recovery end up coming back renewed and refreshed and probably better able to function and deal with the college stressors than when they're dealing with an addiction.
Well, here's what I hear. I always hear, I wish I would have done it because I just came back and went back to what I was doing. And I wish I would have gotten that help sooner.
Mm.
So my message really is, hey, let's not be living in regret. Let's not keep repeating what's not working.
Right.
It really is. It's the healthy people that make the choice to get help.
Exactly.
You do have to move out of denial and say, oh, I'll just handle this. Because really, probably you would have handled it if you could have. And let's be big enough to say, I need some outside help.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jantz, what about families who, they may not be seeing their student very often, and then if their student comes home or their child comes home from school for a break and they can pick up on things
yes.
that are indicating that, there's a serious problem at hand, what encouragement might you offer to these families who are wanting to put some type of intervention in place, but are just not sure how to approach such a touchy subject?
I've talked to many parents and moms, and I recall a mom who said, I was shocked I saw my daughter. She came home over a break, and I hardly didn't recognize her. And she didn't look healthy. And in this case, she was very thin. And she was moody, and I didn't know who she was. And I was really alarmed. It was not the daughter that had left to go to college. I don't know who this was. And she's the stranger in our house now. Who is she? And here's what, we need to recognize. Wow, if you feel that and something's that out of order, we don't want to ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
We want to really approach it from a position of love and acceptance, and be willing to talk about these things. Because there's also parents and folks that and really loved ones who kind of ignore it and go, okay, well, she must be going through a phase,
Right.
or he must be going through a phase. But the reality is this person needs help. So let's be big enough and bold enough to say, I'm concerned about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you so much, but I'm really concerned. Tell me more about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, a judgmental approach that says, what in the world? Look at you. What is wrong with you? What have you done? Because we need to enter their world and really say, I really love and care about you, and tell me how you're doing, and open the doors. Now, sometimes the person's still going to be really defensive, and you may not get the progress there that you'd like to have in understanding what's going on. And there are times where we need to do more of a real full intervention, and have loved ones intervene and have the help of a professional at times. Really going to intervene. And that really depends on how far and how much of a stronghold this addiction has really acquired in this person's life. If they're not willing to really talk about or to talk to somebody, if it's not you as a parent or a family member, if they're not willing to talk to you and not willing to talk to somebody else, that raises my level of concern.
Great information. Thank you so much for sharing that.
So,
can you touch briefly about co-occurring disorders? Because I know that it's something that commonly happens with substance abuse.
Sure.
So for example, for a college student who may be having or dealing with underlying anxiety or depression and really using some type of drug or alcohol to kind of medicate themselves, can you touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. That word co-occurring kind of sounds almost a little scary,
Yeah.
Co-occurring, what else is wrong with me? And really what we're saying is maybe co-addictions is that
Right.
I have multiple issues. Maybe I've struggled with depression and I went away to college and boy did I get my worse depression perhaps. And so that's one side. And maybe to cope, I learned in college that I could take a bunch of stimulants and others had these pills. And so I just started taking those and now I can't seem to function without those.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, everybody's smoking pot, so I do that too. And of course, I'm going to, drink because everybody else is. So I develop another series of really addictions that go alongside my mental health issues that probably pre-existed before. And
Right.
so now I've really got probably worse depression and I'm feeling all this addiction pull in my life. So co-occurring, I'm dealing with multiple issues as well as the chemical dependency.
Hmm. And how is that typically addressed in treatment for substance abuse?
Typically how it's treated is we're going to really zero in on where the addiction is and really work diligently to deal with that addiction and then really see, well, what are the mental health issues that emerge? Because addictions and chemical dependency really kind of hide, if you will, or make understanding what's really there emotionally or mentally, it's hard to see what's really there because everything's so chemically altered.
Right.
And it's kind of like the person who they stop using, they go, wow, okay, I feel better, but I still have some issues. And
Mhm.
that's pretty common, of course. But I'm going to probably want to really zero in on all that addiction and the distortions that's created in the brain because of the chemical addiction and really get the brain cleaned out. And let's see what happens to the depression. Let's watch and see where's the anxiety levels. Maybe there is some counseling that's needed on some past traumas that have happened. I need to resolve some issues from the past. Maybe I'm in some relationships that are destructive or abusive. I need to deal with that. But it's a whole lot easier when I start removing all that chemical addiction.
Absolutely. It definitely seems like a priority to address for any student.
Sure.
And Dr. Jantz, what encouragement might you offer to any college student who might be listening tonight and who is dealing with some sort of addiction, whether it's substance abuse or, like you were saying, sexual addiction? I mean, there's so many ways that people stimulate themselves and
Yeah.
ultimately are hurting themselves. So what encouragement might you offer to this college student tonight?
Well, I know when you're feeling so bad and there's so much pressure, there's so much stress, and maybe things do feel really out of control. And maybe you're in that really, it's a dark place and you feel like maybe I don't know if I can go on and you're feeling that. I want to first of all acknowledge that. It can be simply overwhelming in that dark space. You don't feel like how you can ever get out of that. I just want to say now's the time to make sure that I make a decision. I may not know what to do. I don't know what the future looks like, but I am going to ask for help because I'm going to regret it if I don't. I'm going to regret it if I keep doing this because guess what? It's a pretty predictable course. I keep following what pattern I'm in, where it's going to take me. I really don't want to go. It's bad enough now. So to ask for help, be encouraged because I can start to talk about what's going on and I need to get a team together or have the right team so we can begin to formulate a plan for you that so you can feel that sense, okay, I feel some hope because there's a plan. And we need people, we need professionals, we need those to circle us and help us. What is that plan? What's it look like?
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Jantz. And just kind of in closing here, where can we learn more about you and your books? You mentioned you just came out with your 30th book. Or if someone is interested in finding out more about the Center, A Place of Hope, where can we find out this information?
Well, you said it so well, A Place of Hope, and it's a placeofhope.com. That's the first place to go.
Mhm.
My books are available in most all places, and of course, Amazon and online. And there are some good resources. If it's an eating disorder, we've got a great book related to that. depression. But a book is just a place to get some information, as a place to begin. And if you're really wondering, okay, yeah, because if I'm that depressed, or I'm using chemicals, or I'm chemically addicted, I'm probably not going to read really well, okay,
Right.
or concentrate really well, or remember really well. I'm having a
Right.
hard enough time with college trying to remember what class I'm taking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but go to aplaceofhope.com and just look at what the options are. We're always surprised, or people are surprised. They go, "Wow, I didn't realize, what the options really were." And we believe, and our goal is to help people change their lives for good. And
Hmm.
find out. That's the first place. Just gather some information. Go to aplaceofhope.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, thank you for the time you took to be with us tonight and just for sharing your expertise in this field. It's definitely appreciated.
You're welcome. It's good to be with you. And I do want to say there is hope. And the pressures for college and dependencies and chemical dependency, they're very real. And we want to acknowledge that. But there's a different way to go as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that message, Dr. Jantz.
You
And
got it.
to our listeners tonight, again, if you're interested in finding out more about the Center, A Place of Hope, please visit aplaceofhope.com. Is that right, Dr.
You
Jantz?
got
Okay.
it. A place of hope.
Wonderful. And we also have some great addiction resources on our website as well, addictionhope.com, as well as information about our upcoming Google Hangouts and Twitter chats. So we'll hope you join us in the future. Thank you again for being with us tonight. And thank you so much again for joining us as our expert tonight, Dr. Jantz. We
You
appreciate
got it.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Take good care. Good night, everybody.